play the whole regular season there, Sam Malone, and you hope that you're one of those teams that's dancing
Yep.
down there in the end and you keep the dance going. That first step on the dance floor happens Sunday, Lincoln Financial Field. Eagles, Packers, wild card playoffs. We've heard that one a time or two before.
We have.
It is the Cat Country 96 Birds recap. It is brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by our friends at Banko Beverage. You can visit them at bankobeverage.com. So, Sammy, playoff bound once again. How do you kind of put a bow on the regular season? How did you kind of get yourself ready for what was a meaningless game against the Giants? It feels like this Sunday is just taking forever to get here at this point.
Yeah, it's really Thursday, but I think it is really Monday. You are correct in that. I say the way the Eagles started off 2-2. No, let's not forget they started off 1-0, beating Green Bay, of course. But the way they the first 4 games, first month of the season, 2-2. We weren't sure where they were going. I remember just a couple weeks ago we were talking about this team better start scoring 20, 25, 30 points a game if you want to take them seriously. We were talking about that. Finishing up for the first time since 1991 with the number 1 defense. Compared to their defense from last year, especially the last 5-6 games, including the playoff game, I mean, I say, I would give this whole thing an A, except for the fact that we lost Jalen Hurts for a couple weeks, which, the backups did a nice job, but all wasn't happy in Eagle land because of the injury. But, I'm looking forward to this coming weekend. I cannot wait till 4:00 on Sunday, 4:25 Sunday, and let's get this party started, Crockett.
Yeah, it's I think if you blindly told everybody that 14-3 before the season started, we all would take it. I think you also, to your point, of all the exciting things that happened in Saquon, I think there was an element of excitement at what Saquon could bring. That defense being what it was this season has been fantastic. And we've talked about it before a little bit on the podcast. Points are fun. When in doubt, air it out. Put up 30, 35 points. Love it. There's something about this city and this team when they've got a really good defense that's very fun to root for. And that's what they've got. I think for me, the big thing was in a year like this is the young guys. The young guys have all, where it felt like maybe last year you didn't quite know about the Jalen Carters or the Jordan Davises or the Nakobe Deans or, you could even go to the other side of the ball. You could go Cam Jurgens. You weren't sure what exactly you were going to get from him. The young guys who have stepped up, in addition to obviously the top 2 rookie picks who have just been so fantastic on the defensive side of the ball. The story for me this year was defense. The story this year for me was youth movement. And, now you've got yourself, you could argue, and I'll ask you here, Sam, of these 7 teams that are in the NFC playoff picture, where do you put the Eagles in those 7 teams?
The NFC, I would probably rank them from top to bottom. I would probably say they're the second best team in the NFC. I hate to put Detroit there, but Detroit Lions are good, solid, young, fast, aggressive. They don't care. They're a good team. So I think an Eagles-Lions matchup, as much as we want it to happen, I think that could be tough, but I think it'd be a huge test for the Birds. I put them as the second best team in the NFC in the playoffs right now.
I got to go. I think one of the things that still needs to be shown by Jared Goff is not turning the football over. Credit to them. Terrific season. When he's got time to throw the ball, he will pick you apart. Flip side of that is you go back to that Minnesota game. Minnesota had every chance to win that game. And just weren't able to do it, whether that was, missing down in the red zone, not cashing in on those turnovers and things of that nature. I think the Eagles are a better team than Minnesota. And given the injuries and given that, Jared Goff is going to give you chances. This has been a very opportunistic defense. There's also been a really good offense at closing things out, whether that's been in games, as of late, getting in the red zone and finishing out drives. I think that's the difference. And with health, I've got to, obviously Jalen Hurts is a question mark. I mean, we're talking about him almost going a month, without playing relevant football. I just think the Eagles are going to be a really, really tough out. And that's not to take anything away from Green Bay. I don't think you can fall asleep on Green Bay because they can get you. You saw what they did in the wild card round last season. I think the Eagles are a better team. in a lot of areas, and I think should win this football game. But that's kind of playoff football, right? Teams are gonna pull upsets.
Well, yeah, and I don't know about you, and I will ask you if there's one team in the NFC that you don't want to play. Are we both thinking the same thing in Tampa Bay?
Listen, Todd
Yeah.
Bowles kind of seems to have Jalen Hurts figured out.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last time that they were there earlier in the season, they were kind of a shell of the team that they are now. You go back to the playoff games, they haven't looked great. I think there's a
Yeah.
big difference. We go back to that old veteran stadium. Tampa can't win in under 40. I think
Right.
there is a big difference in playing in Philadelphia and playing in Tampa Bay.
Agreed.
I'll say
Agreed.
that. And
Yep.
they too are banged up. From a health standpoint, you really can't argue with how the Eagles are doing right now because Tampa Bay is very banged up on the defensive side of the ball, particularly in the secondary, banged up. Detroit, losing Aiden Hutchinson, they're kind of slowly getting guys back, but
Right.
I just think that the Eagles are the flip side of what you said is, yes, there's certainly teams that I would rather face more than others.
Right.
I
Right.
don't think anybody wants to play the Eagles right now.
I can agree with that. I can. I especially with the fact that the Eagles hopefully will have 2 solid games at Lincoln Financial Field, 2 home games. Who knows what could happen in the NFL in the playoffs? Maybe 3.
Sure.
Who knows?
Sure.
But I'm ready to go. Let's just, the thing is, getting some guys back too from the other teams you were mentioning. Thing that I think really went unnoticed was like Dallas Goedert had a nice game last week. Every time they threw him the ball, Crockett, I'm like, please get him out of there. He's fine.
Yeah.
He has his timing perfect. Let's get him out of there.
Yeah.
And let's just move on from Dallas Goedert playing right now. But I think it's a huge key to have him back. And Grant Calcaterra, nice job as the backup tight end for the Eagles. Did what he had to do. It's nice to have him there if needed to step in with Goddard. But the Eagles very healthy. The fact that they had a chance to rest most of their starters last week, I think was absolutely amazing and good for them to be able to do that and still come up with the win as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think people, other teams could be saying, well, we probably don't want to face the Birds, especially early on when the Eagles are still kind of hot,
So what's the concern for you? If you had to put a thumb down on one thing that says, man, I hope this isn't the thing that kind of bites them in the butt throughout the playoffs, what is that for you?
Jake Elliott.
Yeah. Yeah, special teams in general, I think.
Yeah.
Braden Mann has done a really nice job punting the ball at times, and then sometimes between kickoffs and punts, it's just been like, what the heck are you doing here, pal?
I can't figure out the punting game either, correct?
And then with Jake, you just hope. I don't have any. Jake has been so good. Yeah. He's been so good. I think that's what's, especially from 50, has been so good. And sometimes it just doesn't go that way. And so, listen, we've seen him hit clutch kicks before, timely kicks before, in playoff moments, in Super Bowls. We've seen him do that. So I'm not particularly overwhelmingly concerned. If there's a point in a game where it's a 40-yard field goal and the Eagles need it to tie or win a game, I feel really good that Jake Elliott can hit that kick even now. But yeah, the kicking games in particular, kicking and punting, because this is a situation where, man, you could have all the momentum in the world and then you kick a football off out of bounds and it goes out to the 40. Like those kinds of things that I think that gets lost in the kind of turnover idea, is when your defense can keep a team, inside their own 10, inside their own 20, that's just as good as a turnover to me when the other team's got a punt. Flip side of that is, man, it's almost kind of like a turnover. If you kick a punt and it's not that great, you kick a 50-yard field goal and you miss, that's great field position for the other team.
Right.
So that's where, I think my concern lies a little bit there. Aside from just the general, you want everybody to be healthy, you want everybody to be good, but I still think there's some teams that have some. We kind of saw it with the Bears last week with their punt return, and we've seen that kind of thing, in the NFL over time, but they got the Packers with that last week. I still don't think everyone's shown their cards on the kickoffs yet. I think there's probably going to be some things and some return opportunities that weren't there during the season. I think teams are just like, you know what, give them the ball at the 30, whatever.
Sure.
I think now teams might be, whether that's kicking or returning, a little more creative with how they approach that. And they haven't wanted to show it all season, right? Keep it up your sleeve for when the time is right. And I think we might see a little bit of that in the playoffs. And hopefully the Eagles are one of the teams that are having positive outcomes from that and not negative.
Now, any word on Britton Covey? I know he hasn't been active in the last couple of weeks. Is he okay for the playoffs, or is Cooper DeJean going to be our number one return guy?
I have not heard anything on Britton Covey. I'm not 100% sure. I think he was supposed to be out.
He was out, and then he came back.
Yes.
From the injury, so I don't know what the update.
Placed on IR due to go. So if you're on IR, that's 4 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, we got put on IR, so they wouldn't be able to get him back until 2 weeks ago. I guess technically the NFC Championship game if they wanted to.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Which is tough because all the word out of camp was how good he was doing in that slot receiver spot. And then the injuries happened early on in the season, and he had his opportunities. He made catches, messes his shoulder up early, and then you're kind of playing catch up after that. Then he gets the neck injury. Like it's been a tough season for Britton Covey, but certainly listen, that would be a nice extra added punch.
It would.
I love Cooper DeJean and his ability to return punts, but man, it would be a real kind of moment if something happened with him returning a punt, just because of the impact he's had on the defense. So
tell me about it.
Okay, Sammy, what do you see for Sunday? What's your prediction? What are you kind of thinking? Where do you think this thing goes for Philly against Green Bay?
I think it's going to be very similar to week one. I think the Eagles won by 4 or 5 points.
It was 34-29, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I think it's very similar. The thing that scares me, and I didn't realize this, I was watching it on replay. There's a couple times that the Green Bay receivers fell down because of the different turf and and if they didn't fall, would have had an easy touchdown. There were 2 plays, and that concerns me a little bit thinking about, but it's a totally different Eagles defense, so I'm not going to be all negative on that. I think it's a very close game. I think the Eagles win 35-31. High score.
Ooh, a lot of points for a frozen Sunday afternoon.
Absolutely.
I don't see it as high scoring, and I don't see it as close.
Okay.
This would be a great time. We keep asking for it, but this would be a great time for that Eagles offense to do some things early, to get some things going early. I think both teams are in a little bit of a funk in the first quarter, but I could see the Eagles kind of rounding things out in the second and third quarter and feeling like they've got enough a stiff arms edge kind of going through the fourth quarter. I guess to your point, maybe I could see it kind of being a game in the third, but I do see the Eagles pulling away. I see something kind of like a 24-14 kind of a game, 23-13, something to that effect. Not as many points. I think the weather might play a factor in that. And I think the Eagles are going to rely on that ground game, which is, to me, thinking they're going to chew up a lot of clock. I think they're going to have a great opportunity to run the football against Green Bay on Sunday. I thought they were the more physical team in that first game that they played. To your point with the field, I mean, go back to, I think it was Jaden Reed had the long touchdown where, was it Slay or Quinion or somebody slipped?
Yeah. Well,
but,
true.
So not having Christian Watson in this game, I think is really tough for Green Bay, because he really can take the top off of a defense and make you think that a little bit more when he's out there on the field. I just think the Eagles are the better team. I think if they protect the football and are able to generate a turnover or two, that this game doesn't ever really feel like it's leaning Green Bay's way a little bit.
Need a couple sacks too. You need to pressure Love. You need to get in his face. You need to pressure him. You need to hit him. Even if he completes the passes, you need to hit the guy. You need to let them know you're there for the game.
Yeah, heat them up on a cold day at Lincoln Financial Field. All right, man. Well, listen, hopefully the next time we're following up on this thing, we're talking about Eagles versus insert team here. So the scenarios are pretty much they're going to play the highest seed remaining. Could be Tampa Bay. Could be LA. That could be a whole scenario, because if that LA Minnesota game has to get moved, there's a lot of moving parts in that game. But what we got to do is take care of business on Sunday. Get through the first one, get through Green Bay, and then we'll see where the chips fall from there. Sammy, appreciate you, buddy. Let's go Birds. All right.
Go Birds. We'll see you next week.
It's Cat Country 96 Birds Recap, brought to you by Miller Lite, the official beer sponsor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and by Banko Beverage. You can visit banko.com. Sammy Malone having himself a little breakfast on a Thursday right there, buddy. That's good stuff. It is the Cat Country 96 Birds Recap. Go Birds.